Just
something we could
started
do?
it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So Becky, I'm going to turn it over to
All
you, and
right.
while you talk, I'm going to bring up a slide deck for you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I can get started without the slide deck because the first thing that I'd like to talk to everybody about, first of all, good afternoon, welcome. Thanks everybody for joining me this afternoon. I want to give just a really quick legislative brief. I think everybody knows probably that the legislature finally approved, the governor signed off on a 1% raise across the board, which is up from the 0% raise that they were projected to give us. So that is a little something. I would say we had a very good session. They did approve the DO-IT request, the Department of IT's request for CHESS for $18.5 million, which will take us to the end of the project in 18 months. That is the full amount that we requested. That has never happened before. It is historic in my view, because generally we ask for a lot and get very little. A couple of other things that I just want to mention also that passed with Senate Memorial 16, which is a memorial that Katrin Allred really spearheaded to study collecting data on student parents that will then be used for policy work and programming for student parents. So thank you to Katrin for all of your efforts in making sure that you could see that through to the end. It's really hard to get something like that through a 30-day session. So really good, very nice work, I would say. And then the other thing I want to mention is Senate Bill 177. This is part of a $1.2 billion appropriation in the work of fusion energy and quantum computing, really. There, $6 million was appropriated to CNM to be spent really and distributed to community colleges throughout the state to set up training programs in those areas. There's also training in hypersonics, different high-tech areas that the chair of Senate Finance is really eager to try to boost the workforce in New Mexico in these areas. There are companies that are locating in Albuquerque. There is one fusion energy company, I think, in Santa Fe. And then there's projected to be a bigger demand for that. So anyway, if you're interested, let me know and I'll see if I can find more information. But CNM is taking the lead on this. They already have some of this programming and they're good at getting money out the door. So that's good for everybody. A couple of things about commencement. So anybody who has been to commencement in the last couple of years knows that we are bursting at the seams in the fitness center. So this, our first attempt to try to improve on the situation is to basically have two commencement ceremonies on May 16th, on that Saturday. The first ceremony will be at 9 o'clock, and this will involve the schools of fitness, education, sciences, health, engineering, math. And at 1 p.m., the schools of art and design, business professional studies and education, liberal arts, trades and advanced technologies and sustainability. So we're looking to split the graduations according to school. Each graduation will be shorter than the long graduation that we had before. You know, we were running well over 2 hours really last fall or last spring. And I think we're trying to keep them more at about an hour this time, but everything else will remain the same. But we'll see how this goes, and if we like it, this is how we'll do it from now on, or until we decide to change it. So, but anyway, this way we don't have to curtail the number of guests that a student can bring, or get a little bit more particular about which students can attend, depending upon whether they get a certificate or a degree. So this way, everybody can attend, and that is the goal. So that's how we're going to try graduation on May 16th. Okay, I'd like to talk a little bit about the strategic plan for a minute. I think you all have seen this numerous times. Our mission, obviously our mission hasn't changed, but neither has our mission statement. But these are the three priorities: creating systems for student success, career readiness, and economic alignment. And then also number three is to build institutional excellence through people, processes, and innovation. So you see there's really kind of a nice link between all three of those. So next slide, Todd. All right, so you can see our values. And remember, I want to just point out again that the vision and the values were created by the strategic planning team that met, I don't know, for close to a year. It was a very interdisciplinary group, also board presence on the group. And I really want to thank Yash and Todd Bruce for their work on coordinating all this. They did a really nice job. But the values that we chose are student-centeredness, which, you know, can be summed up just in that we prioritize what the students' needs as we make decisions. I'm not saying our needs are not important, but if it comes down to choosing between students' needs and our needs, we choose the students' needs. And so sometimes that may feel like a bit of an inconvenience for us. Innovation, looking to use new technologies where appropriate, work on our processes, and really try to make a smoother and more integrated system for our students. And then also equity, which is essentially for our purposes to reduce barriers for our students and to go beyond access and help them really be able to complete what they came to Santa Fe Community College to accomplish. Next slide. So a little bit more about student-centeredness. Some of the initiatives that we will be pursuing, and I know some of you have heard a whole lot about this, and some may be new for some of you, shortened academic terms. And so we will be implementing a different approach to coordinating 8-week classes. We have a lot of 8-week classes now. We've had a lot for a long time, but really looking at how 8-week academic terms actually fit into the pipeline for how we're going to have students complete. And then focusing on who we serve: students that work, students that have families, students that are always trying to split their time, split their resources and their energy. And so part of our approach will be to design systems that support students who have all of these considerations. Right now I'll just say that part of a large part of our Workday project has not just been to have a modern ERP and student information system because it's time to have a modern ERP and student information system. It's also to do a lot of really kind of fundamental work on the processes that we use for every piece of having a student move through the pipeline, from even thinking about Santa Fe Community College to enrolling, to being advised, to getting financial aid, and then taking classes, and ultimately towards completion of some goal. Okay. So the next value is equity. And again, this means being able to track students from application through completion. And we focus on first generation, low income, and student parents. They are the heart of who we serve. And so our systems need to be designed around focusing on the success of these students. And we do want to make sure that our students know that we truly believe that their opportunities are endless, and we're here to support those. Next slide. All right. So, I wasn't involved in the values conversations, but I was really excited to see innovation appear here. And, we've been focusing on innovation I forget, are we in year 3 of our Workday implementation? It seems like we're in year 16 sometimes. But a lot of the work, as I said, is not just focusing on buying a system, plugging it in and saying, okay, now we don't use Banner, now we use Workday. but we've really tried to focus on not taking practices that we have in Banner that are, okay, but in some cases far from ideal, and then just rolling them into a new system. And so we've really tried to update what we're doing to work with our partners in CHESS to look at what the best way is to enroll a student, and then having agreement for the most part in how that should be implemented into Workday and what that's going to be able to do for our system, for our students. And so, we have our Workday CHESS project as, for me, the very center of innovation. We've also developed a new Center for Professional Learning that will be for both faculty and staff. And I'll just say right now that there will be a whole lot of Workday training that comes with this center. And so we'll be setting that up. I don't know who was clapping for Workday training. I figured you all be, people would be running for the hills from Workday training by this point, but no, it's very important. And when you actually see what we're doing and see what it looks like from a student's perspective, it's pretty impressive. But also the creation of our research park entity, Mosaica, and we've been offering some fantastic new training that's leading to really great jobs within our community in a fashion that we've not really been able to scale in a way that we're able to now, where we can use a boot camp format and really get training off the ground quickly. And then continuing to implement Canvas on a wider scale. So Canvas is our student learning system, our learning management system. And, all of our classes are in Canvas, whether they're online or whether they're face-to-face, but we're going farther and farther and essentially using the tool to a much greater degree than we have before. And so, we're promising our students that what we're going to do is continue to look at the processes that we have and continue to update. One thing that Workday does, it has an automatic biannual update. I don't think that means that it's always a real easy update and it does it all on its own, but it is continually improving on the processes that are configured in the tenant. So it's forcing us to adopt the stance that we understand and that we have chosen to be continually trying to improve upon what we're doing for our students. Okay, next slide. So you can see that our values are interconnected, and the three pillars in our strategic plan are very connected too. That right now, and these are some of the problems that we see across community colleges, and one of the primary issues that I'm hoping that we will have a solution for, and that's that we have multiple systems that don't seem connected. And they're not connected. And we buy add-ons all the time when we have a problem that we need to solve for. And so what we're looking at through Workday is trying to have most of our systems configured in one tenant, and then with a very limited amount of add-on systems. Another issue that we always experience is that we have lots and lots and lots of data, but we can't access it very easily. And so that is something that with our Workday project, we are also embarking on a data solution that I'll tell you just a bit more about in just a second too, but that will make all of our data not only safer, it'll make it better, cleaner, I guess we say, and then also that we'll be able to access it much more easily. And then we have very limited visibility into the student journey. We know that we need to be able to tell when to intervene for students. When is the student likely to be in crisis? When is the student likely to experience financial issues or some other kind of non-academic issues? And so technical solutions that will really give us that broad picture into the student journey and give us direct guidance into when we need to intervene would be a complete game changer. Okay, so, questions asked, how do we know when students are truly learning? We have all sorts of assessment tools. but we don't necessarily know when students are reaching their goals because their goals may not be with what we think they are. And then how do we know that the outcomes that we get are equitable across all student groups? You know, we try to slice and dice our data to where we know across genders, across ages, across ethnic groups, how students are doing. But that doesn't necessarily tell us what we should be doing, what we could be doing to improve inequities between all sorts of demographic groups. And so how do we respond when students need support? So I've teed this up like there's some great reveal here, and there kind of is. So I'd like to introduce to all of you, I think, first of all, a lot of you have already worked with our consultants, CampusWorks, from CampusWorks. So Chess employed CampusWorks at the very beginning of our collaborative, at the very, very, very beginning. And I would say even before we were actually a real collaborative. And so CampusWorks has been a strong guide in terms of letting us know what we're in for sometimes before we actually experience things with the implementation, giving us a lot of guidance on what solutions are to some of the problems that we experience, and also just being a really experienced and very level-headed partner in how we can have the best relationship with Workday that we can possibly have going forward. And this is, you know, it's been a long process. Those of you who have been involved know that there have been difficulties at different times in working with Workday. I feel like we've really moved through those in a really professional way. And I will say that CampusWorks has been there to help us with a lot of those issues. CampusWorks has also helped us with our data solution and is working. Some of you may have met with some of their consultants who are on campus. I guess it's been a month or two ago. And they were doing discovery on campus and trying to find out what our data policies are, how we use our data, how we collect our data, different issues like that. And so they have they've been there with us, and they've been a partner in this journey with us all along. A few months ago, I guess it's been more like since in about October, I heard about a new tool that CampusWorks had developed. It's an AI tool that is a closed AI tool, meaning that it only uses our data that we already have, our data that we can't access, that's, you know, stored in, you know, all sorts of weird places around campus. And so we have difficulty with that. And so I heard about Campus Lens, this new product that is basically an AI tool that would be built for us with lots of consulting. And I thought, that sounds like magic. It sounds like something we can't do right now because we're so buried in Workday right now. But I had a meeting with the CEO anyway, because I thought, well, I'll find out more about it. And so in the meeting, when I was finding out that two of our partners are already implementing Campus Lens, and that San Juan in particular, I think, had my initial reaction, which is that this is going to be too hard right now. And then when I found out, oh, we do everything for you, basically, I had a whole different attitude towards this. So I have asked two of our friends from CampusWorks to join us today to talk to us about Campus Lens, so that everybody can kind of find out more about, you know, what we would be able to do and how this would work. And so I would like to introduce Jen Grow and Byron Sayers to all of you. And I'm going to turn this over to them and let them walk you through their presentation, and they'll answer your questions. And well, they just know a lot. So Jen, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, let me share my screen and we will get started. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for making time for us, as Dr. Raleigh said as well. Appreciate everyone being here. My name is Byron Sayers. I'm the Managing Director of Data and Analytics at CampusWorks, and I'm joined here with Dr. Jen Grow, Vice President of Client Success, In between us, we bring decades of experience to higher education, working with institutions very similar to yourself, and really happy to have the opportunity to share a little bit about Campus Lens and what the capabilities are there. So before I get into it, just, high level setting some expectations around what it is and what it's not. We are not doing a software demo. This isn't a software itself, very much a service. And we'll get into kind of what that means and how that will really impact all of you and support each of you, right? And so part of what I want to focus on out of the gate is really kind of thinking about the problems that you're living with every day as it relates to student success, the ability to predict that, what type of items that are out there that we can think about data pointing to becoming actionable insights for us, and really thinking through the different components of that. So as we think about the overall Campus Lens solution, you've probably heard the name a little bit around campus and maybe through some of your peers as well. But really, the concept here is thinking about how you have thought about data and the use of it in the last month or two within your own roles within the organization and on campus, right? You've probably had to pull data from multiple data sources. Maybe even ask others to pull data for you to answer questions about a student, about their success, enrollment, retention, et cetera, and then put a report together to really answer questions. And what we're trying to solve for there is not necessarily a technology problem or the fact that Santa Fe has lacking data itself, but really thinking through the fact that you guys have enormous amounts of data. You've got it in your SIS, you've got it in your LMS, your CRM, your ERP, and really the challenge is that none of these data systems or platforms are talking to one another and putting that data into a central location and thinking about data in a unified platform. And really how we can pull that thread all the way through into helping advisors compile data, not compile data manually, right, as an example, or enrollment spending time thinking through the same enrollment approaches and spending the same enrollment dollars on the prospects within the funnel, even though maybe call it a half of them aren't going to enroll, right, because of whatever reason. But we don't have the current ability to predict where to put the focus. And no pun intended, but where to really, focus in on, right, and use that lens. And so the IR office is an example as well, right? Maybe spending a lot of time building reports and accreditation as part of our accreditation lens. Pulling all of that evidence that is currently scattered around dozens of offices or hard drives or filing cabinets, whatever it may be. So kind of thinking through the fact that it's not necessarily a technology gap, but you have plenty of technology, you've got plenty of data. It's really that integration and the expertise that come with it that we've got to be able to build upon and leverage. So as we get into Campus Lens a little bit deeper, this is really kind of the overall look of the unified predictive analytics platform that we have built on top of the Microsoft Azure technology stack itself, and it's integrating data from all of those systems I mentioned a minute ago, and really building a single source of truth. And the goal with that is the fact that, we're bringing additional team members to the table, to the partnership with you all, right, as a part of this, in regards to institutional researchers, higher education experts, data scientists, AI specialists, and data engineers that work alongside the staff there, and not as outside consultants. We don't, come in and do an implementation and disappear. But we're very much embedded as an extension of your team and the overall life cycle of the institution and the education journey for the students. The platform itself is organized into 5 integrated lenses that deliver different results, but they all work very much together. And so the real power comes from the data flowing across those different lenses. And as you think about enrollment lens specifically, this is designed to help decrease the per student acquisition cost by assigning a conversion probability to every student and every prospect, right, in the funnel itself, telling the admissions and enrollment team exactly who to focus on, who to prioritize. And then as we look at retention lens is set out to identify students headed for a D, a F, or withdrawal before they get there. And the before you get there is the really important piece. We've got predictability of really being able to spot those risk factors and attrition issues and so on and so forth, to give advisors very specific actual guidance on what to do about it, student by student.
Byron, can I interrupt? Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Lanisha,
Whoever's talking is muted.
Yeah, I guess you're okay, Byron.
Oh, sound.
this sounds.
We can't hear Jen.
No. Jen, are you talking right now?
Yes, sorry, I'm getting too bad. I'm getting a bad Wi-Fi signal and bad volume, so we're working through that.
Very important too.
Okay, testing. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up, maybe. Okay.
Yep. You're good.
Thank you. Okay, what I was saying is, Lanisha and everyone else who's there, I'm hoping that, well, a lot of questions coming. Okay, so I think the biggest difference between Power BI dashboards is taking what you have, and those are operating reports that you need to run the university or college. This campus lens and all the different lenses within it uses predictive analytics to try and identify those students or those prospective students that need help. So what I was saying is, like on enrollment lens, as an example, and Byron had mentioned this, it's helping you as advisors kind of look at where are the students that need the most kind of help, and more important, what kind of interventions they may need to kind of either enroll, or if it's retention lens, get going forward. So that's kind of high level. We're going to go into much greater detail. And so I just wanted to say, as we talk through each lens, think of it as helping you identify the students that need the most help and when and where, along with giving you insights as to how to help them. That's, I think, the biggest difference between the dashboards you're probably creating using Power BI right now.
Great. Okay, so student lens, specifically gives the holistic view of each learner, not just their GPA as an example, but their overall engagement patterns, working inside the LMS, their learning characteristics and motivational indicators, really so you can understand how to support each student as an individual and not just at a segment level. And then Career Lens aligns academic programs with real-time labor market demand. So we're ingesting live job data from sources like Indeed and LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Department of Labor, et cetera, and really maps that against the curriculum and the student skills profile. And lastly, Accreditation Lens is really mapping the institutional evidence to accrediting body standards, as well as identifying gaps before the reviewers actually get there and start looking at that from a peer reviewer perspective and so on. So it will draft, in addition to centralizing all of that information, and looking at the gaps, it will draft the actual assurance arguments using your own data, and builds in continuous monitoring to, replace that kind of scramble around accreditation itself, and really to cut down on the level of effort that's needed and the time that's needed to prepare for those visits. And then thinking about how it's all connecting together, the patterns that are spotted in enrollment, for instance, inform retention strategies, thinking through the different components of career pathways development, and all the way through painting that accreditation story. So you can kind of see how some of the data is going to flow across all areas and support one another. So kind of thinking through what this looks like from an architectural perspective at a very high level. On the left, you see that data lakehouse and how that is secure, and it's its own institutional data lakehouse for Santa Fe Community College specifically. Again, all on the Microsoft technology. The data from the SIS, the LMS, CRM, and ERP. And typically one or other systems as well is included in that. All gets unified and validated, cleansed, and continuously maintained by our team. And the data still remains your data. It is secure, it's encrypted, it's FERPA aligned as well. And in addition to that, it basically forms that single source of truth. That each lens is then going to draw from and use for machine learning and predictive analytics. So as you think about how your enrollment team sees the funnel metrics today, or the advisors are looking at risk profiles, the IR and assessment team is really looking at accreditation evidence. Workforce leaders looking at labor market data, et cetera. All that data is really coming from the same place. Again, leveraging kind of that unified layer of modern data analytics. The other thing that I'd like to emphasize is we do handle that heavy lifting, right? So as you think about the data engineers I mentioned, we are building and maintaining the solutions and fine-tuning from a data science perspective on predictive modeling, as well as working hand in hand with your team to really think through how to build that data-informed culture holistically.
Okay, Becky, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I wanted to talk about a couple other questions. First, Laura, the truth, that's a bold claim. Thank you for saying that. I didn't believe it either. If you flip back a slide, what Byron was talking about, and really it's a technical aspect to this that, to our knowledge, is very, very future ready. We're cleansing the data to make all of these different systems come together in this data lake. So that is, especially as we worked with a lot of the CIOs or people and IR teams, that your data source, we are cleansing the data so that you can get that holistic view on the learner. And so it is a single source of truth, and it does come through it. I think there was another question I wanted to say. I think someone, maybe Nancy, I thought, was talking about real life scenarios. We certainly can do that. We can do demos if we have time towards the end. But I wanted to say this is not a design abstract. This is actually launched and in use with, even though we're early on in it, we have actual advisors and teams that are using this data. I'm sorry, using this service. And the truth is, we're not sure how it will change different areas or positions. We know that it will give you better insights into your students across the board using this holistic view. So like another school, we just said there's an actual risk score that we're able to work with you and assign to students, especially those learners that maybe aren't seeking out help themselves, like they're struggling in a class. Those ones you probably figure out what to do with, or the ones that maybe just don't fall off. This helps you identify them and then get them into the interventions you're already doing. I would think that that would probably make your areas different over time, but the truth is we don't know, and that's where we'll partner with you to kind of figure that out as we learn all this. Keep the questions coming. We're trying to do our best job to monitor that and then get back to the presentation, because we do want to make sure we get through all the slides. Okay, I'm going back off.
Great. Okay, so let's dig into enrollment lens specifically first. We'll start there. And so if you work in enrollment or have familiarity with that, you know what it's like to spread the outreach evenly across the entire prospect pool, sending the same emails, making the same phone calls, and even, just as kind of plainly thinking about, spending the same dollars on every single prospect. Like I said before, some of those individuals will convert, some of them won't. What if you could actually then flip that script a little bit and allow for what Enrollment Lens does? It assigns a conversion probability to every prospect in the funnel and gives the enrollment team very prescriptive next steps in terms of who to call, what to say. It doesn't mean you have to say exactly, right, word for word what we're producing, but it gives you the opportunity to have a starting point and a script that is there for you to begin to think about leveraging and tweaking a little bit, right? And so we still want your authentic, knowledge and input and footprint on it. That said, you can see in the screenshots below here, right, that there's a conversion funnel, which shows the prospects and where they are, where they're dropping off by stage, by campaign, by lead source and program, all the way thinking through the candidate analysis view that is the screenshot on the right here, where we're leveraging some generative AI to look at the data itself, right? And again, it's very isolated AI model, so it's only being trained on your data and your data alone. And in that environment, and it's producing that detailed profile on each prospect. So what that means is, from an outcomes perspective, you're getting that strategic enrollment decision. You're getting the ability to identify which marketing campaigns are working, how to reduce the per student acquisition cost in that manner, and then thinking through how to optimize the conversion funnel so fewer prospects are falling through the cracks, right? You get better yield. And then, and it's also helping the melt aspect of it as well. And then every summer, right, you lose admitted students to the melt. And that's what we want to, really kind of think through of how we can impact that as well as a part of this. So with all of that, I'm going to go over to Retention Lens next. So retention lens at a little bit of a deeper dive is really the powerful engine around retention and persistence capabilities to support student success on every single enrolled student. It's going to predict with the model that we've built specifically for your institution. It identifies students who are headed for that DF or withdrawal. It dynamically updates new data flows with information from the LMS. So we're understanding, if a student is submitting assignments on time, if they're attending class, if you happen to take attendance, if there are any kind of account holds on the student, or if they're logging into the LMS and interacting with course content. We're not looking at the content itself from a course perspective, but we're looking at whether the students are interacting with it, right? And so we know from those signals, right, how they're progressing through the coursework, and many other factors go into it as well. Those are just a few examples. And that data is refreshed every week. So you get a refresh of that every single week to where you can you see the trend in interactions. You can see the trend in how the individual student is performing in the course with partial grades that are being entered into the LMS, and so on and so forth, right? So it is building a scoring mechanism behind the scenes that allow for advisors to see much more than just a percentage or an individual score, right? You are seeing the individual interactions, you're seeing those trends, and it does move into, as you see on the screenshot on the right, the generative AI narrative that is written for each student. So this is for the advisor as well as faculty members, if you want to use this as well. To really begin to have actionable guidance on what to do next for that individual student to help them, right? And it's essentially the playbook to follow. So as you think about some of the early components of this, I think a little bit about one of our partners, Ames Community College in Colorado. They've deployed Campus Lens. They've already been able to gain visibility into their student retention and early alerts, and they've built a new advising model and case management model around this to really, take their frontline staff and allow them to identify individual students for faster interventions and persistence work, right? So it essentially allows the advising team, right, and faculty to become outcomes creator, right? Versus the manual process that you may have now from that perspective. Think of it as moving away from retention reports that kind of are already showing the students that you've lost, right, or have already left. Now we're looking through the front windshield, right, and really thinking about, looking at the future and how we can, what's coming down the pipe to save the students and help them. Yeah, I can pause there. We can take some questions.
Okay, team. Laura had a question. Laura, this might be more of a dialogue back and forth because I'm not sure I'm understanding your questions and where you're coming from. Becky, is it possible for everyone to come off mute, or is that shut down because it's such a big meeting?
I'm going to guess it will cause an issue, but Todd, what do you think? I'm not usually the one that you would ask that question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I meant more from experience. I completely understand.
Are
that,
you
Becky.
asking if Laura could unmute? That would be fine.
Yes, and can,
Yeah. Laura, if you're open to that.
Sure, here I am.
Yeah, Laura has some questions about the models that underlie this. I think she's really asking about, well, Laura, do you want to ask, like, how is the data used, and then how are the narratives generated is basically the gist of what you're
Yeah.
getting
So that
at,
sounds
right?
like
Okay.
two different processes, right? I mean, our data is powering the analytics, but what's powering the narratives?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Now I'm handing it over to Byron. Yep. Hold on.
Okay, Laura, yeah, so I get what you're asking. So there's two components to that, right? It is the underlying predictive analytics model and the machine learning behind the scenes, and which is driving a lot of the data and the information from your data sets, right? So there's that. And then as we kind of turn and look towards the generative AI summaries and narratives that are out there, what we do is we work with different stakeholders around your organization to look at our particular risk factors. And we say, okay, if you at Santa Fe Community College, as an advisor or as an enrollment specialist, were to see these risk factors or these areas in enrollment, right? What are your current infrastructures in place that, how you would typically respond to something like that, right? And we get some of that type of feedback from you all based off of each of those risk factors as an example. And then we build some of the training for the AI model around that type of verbiage and language and capability that you all have internally already, and then allow for the generative AI model to interpret the data plus the narratives that you guys have helped with in that aspect, and then come out of that with a polished product. So does that help answer the question a little bit there, Laura?
Um, not really. I mean, I would have thought that even with us generating, I guess, the training data for a generative AI model, that would, so is this a proprietary model that Campus Works owns itself?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
It's not commingled.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not commingled with any other institution or third-party trained or trained even for Campus Works broader use as well.
Laura, I'm gonna keep us moving forward and take another question. But if you, as you hear more about this, we really do want to engage, so you can get through Margaret or Becky and come back to us with any deeper dives, and we're happy to try and go deeper to answer your questions. Rachel, I think where you were going, I'm just going to read this question because I think you gave a good description. How will other sources of data be incorporated? So I think this is going back to the data lake a little bit, Byron, but she's saying as a program, they do a lot of their own data tracking and analysis in Excel and rely on Power BI reports to do Dropout Detective. It sounds like there's a lot of manual work to make this work. And so I think she's saying she's looking to incorporate information on students' participation in their program that exists in the SIS, the CRM. And so her question is, will there be a streamlined way for our program participation data to be incorporated with other campus data each semester? Byron, take it away.
Yeah, so today, is that all in Excel at this point, or where are you pulling that data from? And to answer the question, kind of broad brushstroke, right? We are able to take Excel data and move into the data lake. Ideally, we would want to look at if there's a source system that it's coming from or stored in today, how we pull it out of the source system straight into the data lake and avoid Excel if possible. But, we have the capability to leverage all of that.
I took the other question in the chat.
Okay. All right. So Student Lens, specifically, to kind of touch on that a little bit, it takes the student view to a little bit of a deeper level, right? And it really helps inform um, advisors as well as a faculty member, but also retention lens specifically, kind of thinking how the data flows from lens to lens, who is at risk and why. And so one of the larger components of this is really being able to assess what we call the four key pillars of student learning and what those building blocks are and how they capture cognitive characteristics, social skills, executive function, as well as motivational indicators. And this is everything from the LMS specifically, but there are some other data points and things from the CRM and other areas that we look for certain components and certain data points to bring in to help inform this model. The goal here is to really provide an understanding of how a student learns, how they engage, and what motivates them, and what their strengths are. And then allow for those insights to be pushed into the hands of advisors and faculty members. The goal is to ensure that the students are thriving. We're not necessarily we have the capability of pushing nudges as well and or recommending nudges to advisors and faculty members. There is integration that we have that would allow for us to push the nudge to the student if that's something that we want to explore. We have those types of conversations through onboarding conversations and through that process. And then as we go into Career Lens, I know, specifically here in New Mexico, right, the question of whether programs are producing graduates with skills employers actually need or isn't abstract, it's immediate. I know legislators are asking questions around this as well. Employers are. Students are asking. I was in a meeting earlier today, and somebody brought up the comment that they said, "Look, learners are actually becoming more picky about what they want to pay for in terms of their education, and whether that's a skill or a certificate compared to an actual degree, and so on and so forth." So the goal with Career Lens is to ingest that live labor market data, as I mentioned previously, from the different sources, and then map that against the academic programs and the student skills profile. So you can see on the left-hand screenshot here that there's an overview of the market demand data and kind of total job postings, what those top required skills are, the salary distributions, the growth trends by industry, top employers. And then on the right, there is a skills alignment view that shows exactly where your curriculum covers employer demanded skills and what those gaps are. So how this works is we're building and updating skills trees automatically based off of course syllabi, course and program requirements data, and then thinking through the student course plan itself and what that may look like for an individual learner term by term and what courses they would need to be planning for. As well as articulating that market demand versus the institutional capacity. And then taking it a step further and looking at the evidence-based decisions around program investment, curricular updates, and then faculty hiring as well. So, ghost jobs, I see there's a question in the chat. Let me read this real quick. Laura has asked, there's a significant proportion of jobs listed on LinkedIn, Indeed, that are actually fake ghost jobs. Yep. Great question. So the data that we're ingesting from the labor market space is not only looked for ghost jobs, but we're doing deduplication. We are looking at whether they're stale, how long they've been on those job sites, et cetera. It's actually a very sophisticated job feed that we are receiving, and subscribing to actually pull that data into our data lake as a part of the overall service. So it is highly managed, and a lot of components go into that.
There's a follow-up question.
Yeah. So does the career data top employee salary information describe career data specific to the state of New Mexico? Oh, yeah. Great question. Great question, Katie. So, yeah, so actually, the data that we give you all as a part of Career Lens is countrywide. We open up, unlike a lot of other services that you can subscribe to, where they become very expensive if you ask for the whole country, and a lot of times institutions have to kind of geofence and geosegment what they're actually getting and looking at. We're giving you the whole country. So you can certainly filter into the state of New Mexico. You can filter in all the way into Santa Fe, or if you want to look at Albuquerque, if you want to look at Farmington, if you want to look at, other segmented areas, you can do that. We're in the process of implementing zip code filtering as well. And we're exploring looking at MSA as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of filter capabilities built in there, but we're continuously improving that as we go along also. Okay. Yeah, so looks like technical caveat, the IT team may be quite limited in our near-term availability to configure the integrations and APIs, various data sources. Yeah, so perfect example of how we really do the heavy lifting. So from a configuration perspective, we work hand in hand with you all, but we don't ask much other than essentially the credentials be set up, and we work on getting that data acquired on our own, right? So there's not a lot of back and forth that has to typically occur on that space or in that space, but happy to walk through that in lockstep with your availability. So accreditation lens, let's take a peek at that. So really the goal here, right, is kind of thinking through the different ways to prevent evidence from being scattered across dozens of offices, shared drives, filing cabinets, et cetera. And, thinking about the institutional knowledge that may exist in somebody's, someone's head, right? And they may be a step away from retirement, and then that institutional knowledge walks out the door with them. We want to avoid that. And so what we've come up with, and what you see on the screen, right, is the ability to look at different types of accrediting evidence information. It detects that information and is essentially building out a semantic layer of the data, converts unstructured documents into structured evidence records, and allows for querying and analyzation to be done on that, as well as tracking. And then you are able to come out of that with the ability to have evidence mapping, as you see on the left. And then there's, criterion actually linkage that is a part of this as well, that allows for confidence scores and ownership assignment and, freshness components of it, how fresh or stale is the data. And then really, shifting into more of an executive overview that allows for leadership to understand where the readiness of each category and or criterion is for the institution as it relates to accreditation. So we're looking at, minimizing what used to take, 12, 18 months, 24 months worth of planning and really kind of digging in almost as a full-time job for someone to the accreditation process to pull that back and allow for, quicker, faster, almost continuous accreditation efforts, right, as a part of this. So then, as a secondary output of all of this, we have the ability to generate that draft assurance argument and use institutional data to do that. That allows for quicker response and, really just focus on refinements and rather than starting from scratch on that document every visit and every time you either have a mid-cycle visit or review and or up for reaffirmation. So this turns accreditation from that periodic scramble and into that continuous component, and that's just a fundamental shift that we're really trying to move forward with and help. So I know there's a few other questions. A relatively small amount of data. How do you validate the models trained or tuned? Yeah, and producing bias recommendations. That's a great question, Sarah. I certainly could introduce you to our data science team as well to talk through that. However, we use a handful of different methods to ensure that bias is not introduced. We look at not only building out different personas, but we're leveraging confusion matrices as well, and different ways to monitor for bias as well, and the actual accuracy of those models that are being trained. We're looking at that in a handful of different ways on a data science side. So I'm happy to share more information on that, but we definitely have a lot of that in place at the moment. Go through tax approval bypass. Yeah, I'm not sure some of these. So how will other data sources be incorporated? I think we, want to understand what data sources specifically you may be referring to, and how important that is into, the overall predictive analytics that we're looking at and producing. So again, happy to explore that. We will have some of those conversations through our onboarding component as well and process. So a little bit about customer journey, what that looks like, and if Santa Fe Community College moves forward, a couple phases here, right, and what we look at and how we roll this out, what we do, and so one of the phases is capturing that digital footprint of the learner and looking at the data, building the data lake, building out the technology. And then we move into phase 2, where we're really focused on institutional engagement, building those models out and training those models, running through the different components of that and doing our internal testing on that to get to very high degree of accuracy models. And then from there, we build out the predictive visualizations and the different Lens Go Live components. And as we move into the continuous improvement component and optimization processes on phase 4, this is essentially where we are really working hand in hand with the teams and building out the what we call the data culture, that data informed culture, and really helping mature the institution holistically around the usage of their data. And then that continuous improvement and component in phase 5 is where we continuously work with you all, right? And we want to learn from you. We want to learn from your data and improve our solution, but also your experience and, how you integrate that and operationalize it, et cetera. So with that, have a few minutes for some additional questions, but happy to. Folks want to go off mute and or drop them in the chat, we can definitely go through a few.
I have a question about who it's for because I imagine with the predictive analytic component, it's not necessarily for us programmatic folks like in wellness or in counseling or in tutoring. So I'm just really curious about that.
Yeah, so actually it can very much be used in those areas. And those are, some of the conversations that we will, have through the onboarding process and implementation cycle is determining what roles within the institution today would have access to what data as well as which dashboards. And then how you would want to operationalize that as a part of your overall workflow and thinking through how it could benefit you, right? So at this point, are there any other questions at the moment?
I have a question, Byron.
Yeah.
Does this, so, as we're moving into Workday, we will be migrating part of our banner data. Does this give us any more ability to make that easier or give us access to more? Because I know I don't even know what the decisions have been made because I haven't been involved in those decisions, but in terms of like how many years of that data, and then for us, even I think we have to acknowledge that some of that older data may not be that great or accurate or clean or whatever.
Yeah. No.
And so I was just wondering, I've been wondering whether that, we would have more opportunity to have some of that historical data.
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that we do is with Campus Lens specifically is we pull 3 years of data.
Okay.
Which also flows back into one of the earlier questions around, if we don't have a lot of data, how do you train models and that type of thing as well? I mean, we pulled 3 years of data to help with that process as well. But as we pull that data, right, all of that data then is being pushed through our validation and cleansing, components and all of that. So it will help with that. We will get to the point where we are producing for you all data quality reports around, call it 5 different dimensions of data quality. So you'll have all of that information as well that can also help inform broader, call it legacy data components around banner data and how you're going to continue to report on that as well as moving forward with Workday as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And I know there's a question in the chat about ethical AI and how we are handling all of that. So again, happy to share information on that. And I will pass that over to the leadership there to allow for that to get sent out.
Thank you. Are those the questions for now? Did you get them all in the chat? I didn't check.
I think so. It looks like there was one or so that just got dropped in. Let me read through it real quick. What recommendation script for advisors or nudge to students be like? Something like for students. Yeah, so there are different types of nudges and or advisor recommendations. If you would like, I can, share some examples so you can see that, Gerald. I think it would be good to kind of put some eyes on it and see a handful of examples. Happy to share, general examples on what that would look like. Okay, perfect.
Valerie also has a question about labels. Right.
Yeah, so I know students in the system can label in category. Yeah, so Valerie, say a little bit more about labels specifically, if you don't mind. I don't know if you're able to come off mute and or drop a little more context in the chat.
Yeah, I just know an institution that's using this, and students who are doing well have a label, students who are not doing well have a label, so that advisors know how to categorize them. And I'm just wondering if those labels or descriptions are something that the institution controls, or whether the product controls those identification and those terms.
Yeah, so we try to stay away from, I'm using air quotes here, labels, right? And what we really look at are different types of signals and risk scores themselves. And so as you think about one of the components of retention lens being what we call our quadrant view, our quadrant is looking at effort and commitment as well as partial grades and grades. And so if you think about somebody that might be in what we call quadrant 2, they're putting a lot of effort and commitment in, but their grades may not necessarily reflect that. So that would be one way to filter out as an example, right? And then in addition to that, you could see whether or not they're in the risk group of a high, medium, or low. And that would be a second filter that could be applied and kind of go through the workflow at that level. But we try to not necessarily put a true label on students.
All right. Is there another question? I don't want to cut anybody off.
No, I think Laura dropped another question. Happy to talk through the LLM modeling and the modeling on all of that, Laura. So we can. We can definitely have some conversation about that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to let everybody know that if Jen knows I've asked questions, Yash and I have asked questions, and sometimes they were questions that had to go back to the data team or whatever, and we've gotten our answers every single time. So if you do have questions, please ask. And because, we're discussing this and trying to figure out, how, I want everybody to, as much, I think, you don't truly understand how something works until you actually see more demos and everything, but, please ask questions. The other thing that I want to thank everybody though for your questions today, because I feel like this, is a very thoughtful discussion. And we will have more thoughtful discussions. And I appreciate your time here today. And I want to thank Jen and Byron for being here today and for giving for what is for many of us kind of a first glance at what Campus Lens can do. And we will, we will be talking a whole lot more in the next, the next few weeks and everything. And so again, thank you all for being here and really for your attention and for really asking some really tough questions and the kinds of questions that we need to be asking to understand. So, and for all that you do. So thank you all, and I will see you soon.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.